What is up, you guys? The Game Changer is back and in full force. Welcome to another exciting edition. And I am indeed Nate the effing great, and I'm being joined here by my lovely co-host, the always charismatic and incomparable VicTori, Belle. How's it going for you today?
It's good. It's really good. I'm excited to be back and excited to talk about more movies. Yay!
We are indeed talking about more movies. Now, for a lot of people that remember, last year we did a series called Shoulda Woulda Coulda, where we basically went down a lot of the Oscar lists, talk about movies that should have won, that should have won. We're going to be doing that again this episode, but we're going to do a little bit of a twist to it. Instead of picking stuff that have already been nominated through the Oscars over the years, we're actually going to be picking movies that have not really been nominated for the right category from the previous year. So I'll give an example. If you don't mind, I'll take the lead on this one. Oh, I think we froze just for a minute. Oh, there we go. We're good. For a moment we froze, but we're good. So
I've kind of been freezing on and off, and I've been over here like shaking.
No more leeches, mama. Jimmy Neutron was an awesome cartoon show. Anyway, I'll take the lead on this one. So, starting off with basically my number 5 pick is Michael Rooker as Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Yes, I know, I feel like I am just drilling that into everybody's head. Michael Rooker, he deserves this nomination. Michael Rooker, he deserves an Oscar. Michael Rooker. It's because he deserves it. He did an amazing job in Volume 2. Compared to his role in Volume 1, where he was kind of in the background, he was just kind of one of those guys that was just like, kind of here, not too much purpose. But when you go into Volume 2, I felt like he served more of a purpose there. He actually added more to the backstory. He added more emotion. He added more to the story than what he did in the first movie. And of course, just those amazing scenes that he had where he's basically having hearts-to-heart with, Rocket and with Peter. And, of course, who can forget that legendary line of, "I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!" Come on, just give the man an Oscar, even if it's just one of those ones that they just say, like, "Oh, well, here's an honorary Oscar for your amazing deals." Just give him the Oscar. He deserved it after that performance, and I literally felt like that was the first Marvel movie that I actually did cry for. It was an emotional deal, and the way that they built it up, it was great. Again, Michael Rooker deserved a nomination. Why he didn't get it this year, I'll never know. Although I think we've talked about in the past why that won't happen, but we're not going to get too much into details about that.
Right. I loved that. I loved his role, and he's just kind of an all-around good guy, so it's always great that he goes to comic conventions and, he talks to everybody, and he'll give you, a funny gesture or take your weapon away from you if you're costuming and just, play with it for a second. I think he's just an all-around good guy, so, if they just threw an Oscar at his face and he caught it, that would be great.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening, and just Yondu coming in and just being like, "I'm an Oscar award-winning Mary Poppins, y'all!" Oh, man.
Mary Poppins did win an Oscar.
That is true. I remember that. But
double standards, man. Double standards.
But we'll talk a little bit more about that possibly in the next week's episodes. Definitely, I'll talk more about that during the end of the show. But so, VicTori, Belle, what was your number 5 or your first shoulda, woulda, coulda when it came to this year's Oscars?
Okay, my first one. I think I'll give it to. Okay, I probably should have looked up this kid's name. That would have probably helped. But have you guys heard of Wonder, the movie Wonder?
I have heard of the movie Wonder, actually.
Yeah, with the little kid who has a genetic disorder that causes his face and kind of other parts of his body not to form right.
Oh.
And so they made a movie about this book, so it was an adapted screenplay. It was so cute. Julia Roberts is in it. Owen Wilson is in it. And the kid he's already been to the Oscars twice. I'm almost for sure. He's 7 in this kid.
Holy cow.
And so I'm going to Google him real quick. He's adorable, but I feel like his role in Wonder of portraying this little boy who just struggled with himself and being accepted by others and bullying. His name is Jacob Tremblay.
Okay.
And I believe he was in The Room. If anyone saw that Oscar-winning movie, it was very intense. I enjoyed it, but it was very intense. He played the little boy there. He's 11 years old now. He was like 7 the last time he went to the Oscars. Like, okay, whatever, kid, you're the best. But he cries in this movie. He gets upset. He has to put on a ton of makeup for this movie every day. I just think I would like to just give him like a mention of like he did a great job. He made me cry. The movie in general was very heartwarming and kind of showed you kind of what little kids go through and what their families go through. And, bullying, it touches a lot about bullying and sticking up for people who sometimes need help sticking up for themselves. So it was a really good movie. And I think that just how the kid portrayed this other little boy who it was based on a true story, I think he did a really good job. And having that, the ability to do that at 11 years old is really cool. So I wanted to throw his name in there. So Jacob Tremblay for Best Actor, The King.
I will say this, that a lot of times when a movie does hit the emotions, makes you feel just super happy, super excited, or just super emotional, that is one of those movies that, even myself will admit that that's a movie where it's like, yes, this is great, because it makes you actually feel like, it actually makes you feel human. It makes you feel like you actually can get in tune with your emotions. The best example for me was Homeward Bound is one of the most emotional movies I will probably ever watch. And it's just those final 10 minutes, because even though I know how it's going to end, it's like, this is rough. These animals are trying to get home. They're getting so close. No, Shadow, no. Why? Just... I know. Don't worry, I'm not getting emotional about it, but it's just basically reenacting how I feel every time I watch that movie. But anytime you have a movie that really does, have you have a good sense of, either wonderment, of happiness, or of sorrow, it's doing its job. And, there's a lot of other movies where it's just like, oh, you could go without showing a single emotion and still say, oh, this was still cool. But it's those ones that make you show emotions that really stand out the most to me. But anyway, I'm not going to rant too much more about that. We got about 8 more of these we have to do, so let's get into, that would be my number 4. And this one I was skeptical about, but I really had to do research on this. And thankfully this would actually work out very well. And that is for Best Screen Adaptation for Stephen King's It. Now, of course, a lot of people are probably thinking like, no, they've done one in the past. Here's the thing. I looked that up, and that was actually started off as a TV series. So, really, the Stephen King It that came out this previous year was the only one that really made it to the big screen, so I can get away with that. What really can I say about this movie? Let's see. Pennywise was awesome. The Loser Club kids were great. The bullies were absolutely phenomenal. A lot of the character development was spot on. There was a lot of, points where you were more invested into seeing the movie and how it goes. Like, oh, okay. So, I'm trying to remember. I got thrown off for a little bit there. Oh, right. So, with that, Stephen King's It remake that came out this past year just did a phenomenal job. And the fact that so many critics and so many fans were just like, oh, this was awesome. And even Stephen King himself said, hey, don't knock the producers down. They did an excellent job. They did a great job. I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing next. When you're getting props from the guy who created this series, this book, this television series, you did something right. And the fact that they did not get any kind of nominations, whether it was for even visual effects, costuming, characters, even, if they would have gave, Oh, shoot. Oh, no. I remember we talked about this guy's name. Do you remember the name of his name again? I thought it was like I thought it was John something. I forgot what his name was. Yeah, he played Pennywise. I forgot what his name.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. He's Norwegian.
Oh, my God. Oh, gosh.
I know his brother is Eric Northman, who's really hot.
Well, that helps out a lot.
I know his brother.
Oh my gosh, what was his name? Bill Skarsgård. That's right. Now I remember.
There you go, Skarsgård.
That's right. Oh my gosh, that took way too long to remember his name. But yeah, when he played Pennywise, a lot of people were just saying like, well, he was too scary, and when Georgie got killed at the beginning, he shouldn't have because he could have just ran away at the beginning. There was something that he did. I don't know if maybe it was just the craziness or the uniqueness that he brought to the character that made the Georgie character more interested in him compared to the Tim Curry version where he was just, fun-loving and happy just saying, oh, we have everything down here. He's just happy and smiling and just bright. And compared to the Skarsgård performance where he's just, oh, yeah, we got balloons. We got this. We got this. It's like, well, I would probably be running the other direction. But regardless of that, he still did an amazing job, and he definitely brought that Pennywise character to life. It's, again, to me, why was this not nominated for something else? Obviously, I would not have suggested it for Best Picture, but I would have thought that, if Suicide Squad could have gotten an Oscar nomination, certainly Stephen King's It could have gotten an Oscar nomination. Am I going to let that go? No, because it won one. What is wrong with this world? I'm done. Stephen King's It. Why it didn't get a nomination, I have no idea, but it did an excellent job, and it was definitely one of the best movies of last year. Hell, it's actually the third highest grossing R-rated movie of all time, behind Matrix Reloaded and our good old friend Deadpool. So that says
Deadpool has to be in there.
Yeah, Deadpool was number one, and then it's Matrix, and then It. It's like, dude, you had a money-making movie that was highly reviewed. Why is this not a nominated movie? Why? Just explain to me. Oh, because Get Out. All right, fine. I'll accept that. But I don't know if you want to throw your thoughts in. I know usually you don't do well with horror movies, but
yeah, I mean, I heard good things about it. As I said before, a lot of people decide to be Pennywise now. So apparently people enjoyed his interpretation of Pennywise. So, yeah, I don't see why not. Obviously, we are not discrediting who did get nominated.
No.
We would have loved to see a nomination for this. Not that we actually think they would be better than other people.
It's completely subjective and opinionative.
So it's like, sure. I'm like, it sounded like everybody really liked it, so I would love to see it get a nomination. But
let me ask you this: during your conventions over the last, I would say, since September, how many Pennywises have you seen, really?
Well, if we added Chicago Wizard World had a ton of Pennywises. Like there's always at least one or two, but Chicago Wizard World, I feel like I saw like 6 or 7. So there's definitely been a lot of Pennywises, and they're always super creepy and just not what I like to see. But
and surprise, surprise, they all float. Ha 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 ha. All right, I'm gonna not get creepy. All right, so what is your next selection for the Shoulda Woulda Coulda category that we have?
I always like to throw in comedians when they do like a really good role. I just recently watched the Battle of the Sexes, which is the Billy King versus Bobby Riggs tennis match that happened in the 70s at the height of, when Title IX was going to get passed and everything. So it was really pro-women, really, like fighting for women's rights. And for some reason, our society likes to put implications on sporting events because sporting events kind of have a good following. So this big battle of the sexes for women's rights happened to fall on like these tennis players, and Bobby Riggs was played by Steve Carell. And I really enjoyed his interpretation and what he had to do in that role. And Emma Stone was Billie King. And it was just a really cool story. I really like adaptations of real events. Even though I know they're over-dramatized and obviously not all of it is probably true, but I really like learning something. And that's what I think I loved about the Oscars this year in general, is they were less about Hollywood productions and more about bringing light to historical movies or movies that actually happened or were based on true stories. Not that they've never done that before, but this year I feel that's really heavy. So this was one of the, I believe this is up for something, but I know that I said Best Supporting Actor for Steve Carell being Bobby Riggs, because Bobby Riggs had to be this, he literally called himself this chauvinistic pig. He was really taking on the male bad stereotypes of males of the time. And literally, if you watch the movie Battle of the Sexes, you'll hear some things that they say, and you're like, did they really? They were allowed to say this? And the answer is yes. They said women don't belong on the court, women belong in the kitchen. And you're like, what? Like, but that's what they all would say. And so this tennis match really mattered, and Steve Carell's character knew that he was just going to be this awful person. He still cared and he wanted to win, and he was, a pro tennis player, but he was just old versus a pro female tennis player, Emma Stone, and as Billie King, who was young and in her prime. And she ends up, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I don't know. I mean, it's history, you can look it up, she wins. But it was like a huge thing for women, a huge win for women, and how Steve Carell portrayed this gentleman, Bobby Riggs, was really odd, but really like, wow, so I see what he's doing there. Like, he's doing the most so that if it was a different guy that we beat who might have been more humble about stuff, maybe things wouldn't have been so powerful in the end of like, this guy's so awful, like, we beat him. It's like beating a bad guy because he actually feels evil, but he's not. He was just portraying himself as that. So I really liked that the movie. It was, taught me a lot. I didn't really know much about the 70s and the struggle of women, so it was kind of fun. I actually watched it with my mom, who, lived through it, and she was telling me stuff that I never heard from her life. She led a women's movement and stuff, and I was like, whoa, cool. So yeah, that was my number 4, is Best Supporting Actor, Steve Carell, for his humorous yet not very humbling role as Bobby Riggs.
Side note, I know she won't listen to this, but Mother Victory Belle, you are awesome. Keep up the good work. And second off, I felt like, how you're describing Steve Carell and that character, it definitely had the same comparison about how I felt about Tom Hanks' character in the movie The Post. It was one of those things where I'm so used to Tom Hanks being kind of, a little bit more, how do I put this, like down to earth, calm, collective. Only in Toy Story do we get to see that, like, that energetic side. But he's very, like, clean cut and everything like that. As soon as I watch The Post, I see him being the polar opposite. And I literally am just like, what? Did he just, did Tom Hanks just swear? Did he really just drop the F-bomb? Did he really do that? He did? Okay, I'm not dreaming. Holy cow. It's crazy. It's not one of those things where I'm, totally against, but it's just one of those things where it's kind of out of the comfort zone, where it's like, I'm not used to hearing Tom Hanks, swearing or just talking like that. It's like, am I in the right movie? Yeah, that's Tom Hanks, right? Yeah. Huh. Well, learn something new every day. But yeah, I thought he did a great job. But anyway, yeah, so I think that's one of those things that I think I remember seeing previews for the Battle of the Sexes, and yeah, it really did look like it was one of those really good movies that, once again, showing that, hey, women can be awesome too, Just saying, and trust me, when I get to my number 1 pick, you'll know that I fully agree with that. But before we get into that, still got a couple more ways to go. I was originally going to have this be my number 2, but I think I'll bump it down to number 3, so that way I can keep Best Actor and Best Actresses as the top 2. So number 3 for me is Best Original Score, The Greatest Showman. And yes, I know it's already got a nomination for Best Original Song, This Is Me. But to me, I felt like that's just not enough. I know I'm sounding selfish saying that, but there's so many good songs that just really stand out when it comes to this movie. This Is the Greatest Show, Tightrope, the duet that Zac Efron and Hugh Jackman have. Oh my gosh, I loved it. It's one of those situations where it's like, okay, this is the best of Hugh Jackman right here. And I remember Zac Efron. Well, he played the kid from High School Musical. Let's see what happened. Oh wow, yeah, I forgot he was really good at singing. That's right. And oh wow, this is one of the best duets I've ever seen in my entire life. And even Zac Efron and what's her name, Zendaya, who had quite a year actually. She was, of course, Michelle as in Spider-Man: Homecoming, and then she did this role. I literally felt like it was a Twilight Zone deal where it's like, well, she's kind of like this cocky, arrogant, up and coming kid, and now she's just kind of softer spoken, but also still strong, which I was totally for that. I'm like, oh wow, this is pretty awesome. Wait, this is the same girl that was in Spider-Man? Oh, okay, love it. Oh, and she can sing. Oh, okay, man, this is a mind-blowing year for me. But yeah, basically every single song either was very upbeat, it was very inspirational. They definitely knew how to keep the movie rolling at a really steady pace. And just a lot of the lyrics behind the songs, holy cow, I loved it. The first song right off the bat, of course, The Greatest Show. Just talking about like, hey, all of your imaginations are just coming to life. Everything is just, popping out. Just imagine this. And hey, boom, you get the greatest show. Tightrope, of course, Michelle, I think, is it not Michelle Venus? Michelle Williams, I think was her name. The wife. What's it? No. Hugh Jackman's wife character in the movie.
Oh, I don't remember her.
It was Michelle something. I forgot what her last name was. But she was also Manchester by the Sea. Just again, seeing her and listening to her sing, I was just like, oh, this is great. And then having her own song Tightrope, where she's talking about how, yes, me and P.T. Barnum, we were a team, but now it just feels like I'm on this tightrope and I'm all alone, where she's just talking about that. And it's literally one of those things where it's like, wow, this kind of really sucks. And it kind of does give a little bit of the historical accuracy, I guess, that people wanted about who P.T. Barnum really was. But again, just how they presented that music was great. Honestly loved it. It should have gotten, the whole entire album should have gotten an Oscar nomination. But I will settle for just, This Is Me, because I arguably it is the best song on there. I think there were at least one or two more on there that could have gotten the nomination. I thought Come Alive was really good. Even Rewrite the Stars by Zendaya and Zac Efron was amazing. But again, I will settle for one as long as it wins. And yes, that's a spoiler. That's going to be my pick for next week's show. But anyway, your thoughts? I know you mentioned that you did get a chance to see Greatest Showman.
Yeah, I liked Greatest Showman. I thought it was really good. I really liked the This Is Me song. I liked all the songs, let's be real. It was fun. It really got me into it. I love musicals, period, so I'm going to love that movie. There was just something that didn't go deep enough, or they just didn't have a long enough time to make me care more. I think that was my issue with it. And not that I had an issue, but I'm just saying, like, that would be the only thing that I feel like I think it could have, like, it had an opportunity to really pull on my heartstrings, and it didn't. Because, like, they kind of, like, stuck around the one character of Hugh Jackman's character, and everybody else was kind of just not really touched upon. and I feel like somebody else might have had an even better story. So that, not that I didn't like it. I just said, really good movie, would watch it again, really entertaining. I just think if they if they were able to separate it a little more, like the point when he was like following that other lady around and stuff, it really disconnected me because they were just like going, a long, long time, like 6 weeks, 12 weeks, this and then this. And like when the fire happens, I'm like, I feel like I should be more emotional about this, but I'm not. I don't know why. You know what I mean? Like there was some disconnect that if they would have focused on a little bit more, because like I didn't really care about the Zac Efron and Zendaya relationship because it was kind of just like, oh, by the way, they have one. You're like, whoa, could we have seen it grow? Like, why?
Well,
but yeah.
I think for that one, it kind of did grow. It was, I think, of course, I remember watching it for a second time with my friend Griff, and he knew right off the bat as soon as he looked out into the crowd, and there she is. She does her little deal where she's like upside down, and they lock eyes. It's like he just called it. It's like, bing. Here's the love connection. And I think it was just for them of I don't even remember Zac Efron's character, but for Zac and Zay's characters basically to have to battle with, of course, the world as it was back then, because it was not as accepting. Back when they did that, nobody really, saw any of those characters that was in the show other than just a bunch of freaks. And it's like, oh, if you associate with the freaks, then you're a freak yourself. And I think that was one of the things with Zac Efron's character that made it, like, I guess sort of understandable, because back then, of course, he was part of the higher class, and now he's slowly going down, but he's not ready to go fully committed down. Because I think I remember during the I forgot what her name was, the opera singer's song Never Be Enough, which was, oh gosh, that almost was a tearjerker for me because it was beautifully done. At first, what's that?
It was a metaphor for the movie.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Hugh Jackman's gonna follow you everywhere because he wants more.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just, you asked why they didn't have more things, and that's why I would have think that's why.
Right.
But yeah. So, unless you have more to say about this,
it's just like I said when I did the review for Greatest Showman, it's just one of those movies that, bottom line, made it seem like to be unique is great. To be different is awesome. To be just one of a kind is absolutely wonderful. That's basically what I got out of this movie. So, that being said, I've talked a lot about The Greatest Showman because it is awesome. And I could talk more about it, but we only have so much time. So, let's continue on. I believe it is off to you with your third pick for Shoulda Woulda Coulda.
Yes, I almost forgot about this one. And in general, very disappointed about this movie, but it's just because I didn't know about it. So it's Only the Brave. Have you heard of Only the Brave?
I think I've heard of it. But...
So Only the Brave is the Josh... What's his face? I had it up here. Josh Brolin and Jeff Bridges, Jennifer Connelly, Taylor Kitsch. They were all in this movie. It was a very star-filled movie. It's about firefighters who fight forest fires, wildfires, out in the desert and in California. And it was literally a true story about these group of Arizona firefighters who wanted to get their whole team established in the California type, because there's type 1 and type 2 wildfire fighters, and type 2 didn't get to do all of this battling. They got to just kind of dig holes and stuff, while type 1 was the ones that went out and actually fought this fire. And it taught me a lot about how they fight forest fires. They literally fight fire with fire by setting, they dig trenches and then they set fire to some of the forest so that the fire will hit each other, and then they will have no more fuel and energy, so it'll burn out. So it was kind of interesting, and you really, I mean, going into the movie, how they present everybody, I'm like, my initial thoughts are, who is going to die? That is going to be really upsetting, because that's how I feel. I'm like, oh, which one of these guys are going to die? Because they're presenting, they take time on every character to make you like them, and you're like, oh, this is a real person. And then the reason why I picked Only the Brave is I do have it as Best Actor for Miles Teller, which Miles Teller has been in a bunch of random movies. I believe he was nominated for an Oscar when he was like doing the band with, I forget what band it was, but he had a movie that he had to like play in a band. He was a drummer, and they were like, he was drumming and everything. He's a great actor. I really enjoy him. And he was the one guy who had like a drug problem, and he got taken onto the team because like they felt bad for him and they hoped to turn his life around. I'm not going to tell you what happens. But I'm never watching this movie again. And,
wow.
I was devastated. Yeah, it's something that I've actually told people, like, don't watch this movie, because it made me feel so, like, I was devastated for, like, a whole night. Like, I couldn't get over what happened. And it's a true story. So you can look it up if you want. Go ahead. Search it in your Google. It's not fun. But it was really good. I obviously got attached to the characters. It was really just moving. It was kind of what you were talking about when I said wonder. I gave you those the happy emotional feelings, and having the family. And obviously you're sad when they're sad. This gave you like a different feeling, and it kind of showed you perspective about like tragedies that you're like, holy crap, I would never have thought that. And Miles Teller's character has to go through something that no one else went through, and his reactions with it and what he has to do is just, you're like, oh my god, I would never have thought of that. I would have never thought the disappointment that could come out of something like that. So I don't want to give it away, but if anyone wants to see, I mean, unless you want me to give it away. Do you want me to give it away? Do you want a spoiler?
Well, go for it.
Oh, okay, spoiler alert. Turn off now if you want to watch Only the Brave and not be totally, like, know what's going to happen. But basically, Miles Teller, out of the 20 men that go to fight fires, is the only guy who survives one of the wildfires. So 19 other men die. 19 of the guys that they try to attach you to all die in one flame because the overhead water that was supposed to pour on them missed. And it's a true story, like they just didn't hit them. They didn't drop water on them. And so an activity that they constantly present in the movie, which me and like people who are watching are like, they're going to do this for real. They're going to do this. It's an emergency drill to kind of cover themselves. And it's supposed to protect them from the fire, but now you know it's just bullshit. Like, it's just like a safety thing that will never work. It doesn't work. They all burned alive and died from this fire because it switched directions on them, so they were going the wrong way, and the people, like, directed them the wrong way, and then all 19 died. And the point that I'm talking about is this kid, Miles Teller's, he was probably, like, 20-something, like, when he's supposed to be in this. He is the only survivor because he had to be the lookout. And so he got saved by someone because he wasn't with the group. And he wants to go back. The community that they're from is in mourning. Like, they heard that all of their family members, all the husbands have died. And so they're all joined in a gymnasium mourning and hoping, and they hear that one guy survived. So everyone knows that one guy survived. And he decides, he's like, I want to go to the gym, I want to see everybody. And the guy who's driving him is like, no, we should not take you there. And he's like, I said I want to go. And so, like, he goes, and he walks into this gymnasium of people who loved him and people who really care about him. And all you see is disappointment and fear and crying. Everybody breaks down, and they're disappointed that he is alive. Because they all wanted their husband to come back. And you just see this kid's face go from I'm excited to be here. I want to mourn with you, to like, they wanted me dead. And it's true though. Like, if you think about the outcome, like, why wouldn't somebody be disappointed that he was alive if they thought that their husband could be alive? And it was just crazy to think about. And I was like, I would have never thought a Survivor story would have to go through that too, of being like, now everybody that I loved and that accepted me as family are now, like, they can't handle me being here. So yeah, it was crazy. It was really hard, and I literally could not, like, I was so upset that they killed everybody. I knew they were going to kill someone, but I did not realize all of them were going to die. And it was just a really good story, but like I tell people, I'm like, I don't think it was worth watching. It was really depressing. It was really depressing. Like, me and the two people who watched with me, we were all like, can we watch like a comedy now? Or I don't, like, I can't. I literally was like, I don't think I can go to sleep on this. Like, this movie was terrifyingly too real. It was too real. But yeah, I definitely think that possibly the Miles Teller, the actor who survived and had to go through more of the, you know, the recall or the rebound effects of the fire, he did a really good job. And I just wanted to mention that movie in general because it was crazy.
Man, that is insane. I got nothing. I'm speechless. I really got nothing to really add on to that because, geez, that's. I
mean, it was a good movie. Like, if you want to see it, you totally can. But knowing, like, literally, I had to watch something else after it. I never had that effect on a movie. Like, obviously, like, if, like, you knew they were attaching you to these humans for a reason. And at the end of the movie, they connect who was who, like, the real life and the actor, and they show you the real life guy, and you're like, that kid was what? He was 19. Oh, that kid was 20. Oh, great. Oh, that kid. Oh, 22. He's dead. Great. Like, it's just like really sad.
Right. Yeah.
But a good thing to know.
Yeah. Yeah, those stories that do, incorporate a lot of the real events, like you say, do hit another level. And especially when they do tie in all that stuff. I remember watching Patriots Day, and when they showed, like, actual footage of the Boston incident, when they actually brought up, these are the survivors that went through that. It's just like, this makes me appreciate their lives on a totally different level because, obviously, they have the actors and actresses, playing the roles of these people that survived. And I think thankfully for us, it was one of those situations that did have a happy ending. The person that got, that did all this mass murdering, he got caught. Yep. But
the two brothers, yeah.
Yep. And just reminded
me of another one. Way to go. I literally just switched one of my answers.
But, yeah, it's just absolutely insane when they do that. And when they make it so real. And then they have the real elements. It's like,
I loved that movie, by the way. Patriots Day, really good.
It was really good. I
know, like, and we lived through that moment. Like, that was something that I lived through, and I didn't know some of the things that happened. And I'm like, how did I not know this? And it's like, oh, because you don't care to know about it. You're like, did they kill him yet? Did they kill him? Like, no. Like, for the Chinese exchange student, like, I was like, holy crap. Without this kid, New York could have been bombed too. Like, what the
right.
about it. Didn't even know. And I mean, obviously it was on the news a little bit, but it's so washed over because of so many crazy events happened through that. But he literally saved thousands of lives, and he's like a transfer student from China who's probably going back to China. Like, poor guy.
Right.
His car gets jacked, and then he's in it, and he escapes and tells everybody what he knows. Crazy.
It is crazy. And what's even crazier is that I need to think of the perfect segue to go from these emotional movies to my next pick, which, oh god, this is a tough segue for me. I guess we could also say that this is an emotional performance, really, to say the least, because the number 2 pick that I would have for I would have this for Best Actor would have been Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker in Star Wars The Last Jedi. You talk about a roller coaster of emotions throughout this entire movie. Everything that Luke Skywalker had to do. And first of all, for Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, this was possibly the best way for him to go out, in all honesty. I know there's a lot of people that are just saying, like, oh, they besmirched the Skywalker name, and oh, they did this, and they did this. They didn't mention that the Force could do this. Just shut up, okay? Like I've said before, the fact of the matter is that this was Carrie Fisher's final performance as Princess Leia. I don't care if this movie was trash. It was a great movie, and I'm willing to, look past all of its faults because this was indeed the final performance of her. But also, this was the final performance of Luke Skywalker, a.k.a. Mark Hamill, because this guy gave so many great memories when it came to Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and just having that final glimpse at the end of The Force Awakens where he's just looking on at Rey. Rey's just holding the lightsaber out, and he's just got this look of just bewilderment, of anger and emotions, and we find out why that is. It's just one of those movies that Mark Hamill really gives Luke Skywalker a lot more to work with, where they talk about him being, where he just, goes into exiles, and he's just, living on his own. They're showing all that. They're showing all of the emotions that he's going through, where he basically talks about, yes, I ran a Jedi Temple, but I also was the one that created, Kylo Ren, where he basically feels guilt about that. He's going through all of these emotions where he's basically talking about balance between the light side and the dark side. Just excellently done. And for the love of all that is high and mighty, the final scene that featured him, where he is on basically like the Stonehenge tape deal. He's just cross-legged, he's doing a meditation, and what we see is the two suns basically going down, just like in the original Star Wars, where he's looking off in there thinking to himself, I'm going to be out there, I'm going to be the one that's going to have adventures and everything like that. And just having him find that inner peace after so long, and then finally he vanishes. It's one of those things that he provided such an amazing Oscar award nominating performance. I am kind of saddened by the fact that he didn't get nominated for it, but also at the same time, I guess I can understand that. And there's a part of me that thinks, you know what, maybe he's just too good for the Oscars. Maybe this was one of those performances that was just, so far beyond the Academy's reach that they could not comprehend it and think, unless we fully understand this whole thing, we can't make this a nomination deal. In a perfect world, I'd like to think that was the situation, but there's probably other reasons. But again, everything that Mark Hamill did as Luke Skywalker in this movie made me just so proud again to be a Star Wars fan. Again, seeing him even have some comedic moments, like the first thing you see from him, he's holding the lightsaber and then he just discards it. And I'm just like, what? What? So we don't see Luke Skywalker for like years, and this is how we see him. He's just like, oh, this is my dad's lightsaber. Just chucks it. It's like, and just everything that he did, teaching Rey about balance between the light side and the dark side, and then having that conversation with Yoda. Just, oh man, that was good. Just for them basically to admit, the way of the Jedi, it's done. It is done. It's time to find that balance. It's time to find that new regime, find that inner peace. And he found it. He finally did find it. And it was one of the best performances, like I said. And yeah, again, I'm disappointed he didn't get an Oscar nomination for it. But again, maybe it's just one of those things that's just too hard to comprehend. But at the same time, maybe it's just one of those things that, it's just too good for an Oscar nomination.
All right.
Yeah, I'm a nerd. What do you expect?
Cool. But yeah, my number 2 pick
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Unless you have it in a different order than I do.
Huh?
Unless you have it in a different order than I do.
No.
Okay.
My number 2 is what I just switched. So I was going to say that I just wanted to throw in, I know that somebody else is going to talk about this later in the show.
Okay.
I wanted to throw in Wonder Woman as just Best Picture because I thought it was really good, and I'm just in general disappointed over some of the choices. I'll talk about my number 1 later too. But so I changed that with number 2 since someone else is going to talk about it. My number 2, I decided to do Stronger because you said Patriots Day. I don't know if you know about Stronger. Have you heard of Stronger?
I think I've heard of Stronger. I believe I've heard of it, yes.
Yeah, so Jake Gyllenhaal, I forget the guy's actual name, but Jake Gyllenhaal portrays one of the Boston survivors that lost both of his legs above the knee. And he basically portrays this guy who's literally an average Joe guy in Boston who has to go through this scenario. And again, it's portraying what survivors have to go through. And he basically is portrayed as this hero, and he feels like he didn't do anything. He's like, I'm a hero because I lost my legs. Like, you know, but he did, this is something that was really interesting is, it's a true story again. He's a living person who's around right now. And so Jake Gyllenhaal, like, I looked into this a little bit. He, like, followed him around and kind of, like, took on his Boston accent and stuff. And this guy woke up from a coma after being literally, his 2 legs just are, like, gone. Above the knee, gone. Amputated. And he writes down on a piece of paper, because he's on a breathing tube and everything, so you can't talk. He said, I saw the bombers, I know what they look like. Like, so he was one of the people that literally woke up from a coma and instantly was like, I know who they are, I saw one. And that's what really led police and the FBI, like, to find more information, and were able to go off of stuff, so it was really interesting. And so they were automatically like, he's a hero, and he got to do things, and he just doesn't feel like he's a hero, and he's just trying to fight, like, to get his life back, and you just see the depression he goes through, and what he has to go through, and his family has to go through, and it was really interesting, it was really fun, and Jake Gyllenhaal did a really good job portraying him, and when you said Patriots Day, I was like, why didn't I think of this? This is a great movie. It was worth the watch, and, you know, it just makes you, again, think twice about what we were doing at that time when we were like, Boston strong, you're Boston strong, you represent Boston, to a person who lost so much. Like, maybe it's not always the right thing to say to them. Like, hey, like, you're a hero, man, and he's like sitting there without legs, like, thanks. You know, like, I don't think you understand all that I'm going through. So just being able to take perspective in that movie kind of shows you a different perspective. So I really liked it, and I thought he did a good job.
Yeah, I definitely won't disagree with that. I haven't got a chance to see it, but I have heard a lot of good things about it. So just for them to, you know, represent that. And anytime you have, like, those real emotions that people can relate to, that makes the movie and the character that much more better.
Yeah, I tried to do 4 movies that I think people did not see that I would like them to see, except Only the Brave. If you don't want to be really depressed, don't be really, really depressed, don't watch that. But I've watched a lot of movies this year that were a lot, like, they were worth my time.
Right. All right. Well, you definitely mentioned that quite a bit. I think you had this for Best Picture, and for me, I had it as the Best Actress nomination, that being, of course, Gal Gadot portraying Diana Prince, a.k.a. Wonder Woman, in Wonder Woman. How is it that the most popular movie of all of 2017, and I wish I was, you know, being overstating that, and it is not an overstatement. If anything, it's probably an understatement, with the fact that Wonder Woman was probably one of the best, highest-selling superhero movies of all time. just how Wonder Woman was portrayed by Gal Gadot. And again, this is another one of those performances that she provided that I can't criticize for, because not only was she doing this so well, but she also was doing this while she was with child. And it's just one of those things where it's like, how do I hate somebody who's that committed to creating this one-of-a-kind movie? And in all honesty, we could talk about how the movie was. The story was absolutely simplistic enough, but also complicated enough to where it's easy to follow along. The characters were very well developed. The villain was just kind of out of nowhere. For me, it was one of those things where it's like, I'm waiting for, oh, she got him. Then he showed up, and it's like, you didn't get him. Oh no. Oh boy. And she just, of course, says her phrase, and it's just like, it's not working, hun. It's not working. It's not working. You got to try something else. So it's like, okay, fight. It's not working. What's going on? And just, of course, having that moment where I think it was Chris Pine, was it? What was it? Steve Trevor? I think it was. Up. We froze for a minute there. There we go.
Yeah.
Just
Pine was Steve Trevor.
Yeah, Chris Pine and Steve Trevor. But yeah, just everything that went on during this movie was absolutely great. And her performance, I am very surprised that it was not nominated for an Oscar. I think that, if the Academy would make an exception for a, Best Picture or for a Best Actress nomination for a superhero movie, I would have hoped that this would have been the one exception where they just said, like, okay, we usually don't do this, but people are really talking about this. She actually did a really good job. Let's give it the nomination, because this also represented so much more, and so many women were behind it, and it gave women a movie that they could actually say, like, hey, this is kind of like our movie that isn't, a romantic deal. We have a woman who can kick ass right now. And again, like I said before, in a lot of the other movies, such as, Justice League, they basically admit that, hey, Wonder Woman right now is the hottest thing going, especially with Jason Momoa, when he has that line of just basically breaking it down for everybody. He's like, oh, well, he can only do so much. You're just, this rich prick. And you're just beautiful. I'm like, again, he's basically admitting that Wonder Woman is the best superhero of this entire group. And this is not one of those things where it's just like, oh, he's just saying that because she's a woman. No, because she can back it up. She can kick ass. She can talk the talk and walk the walk. She can do it all. Why is this woman not nominated?
Yeah. No, I knew you had her as number one, so I didn't want to get on my podium yet. But but no, my number one is also something that connects with this. It's weird, yeah. It's really weird that Wonder Woman got totally snubbed. My number one does have some nominations, but just not for what I would think it would have. So I don't know. Do you want me to throw my number one in there then too?
Yeah, go for it.
So I decided to just pick this for best song, but I thought it was really weird that Beauty and the Beast in general did not get the nominations that I wanted it to get. So I thought that Evermore, the Beast song in Beauty and the Beast, should have got a nomination for best song. I don't understand how Beauty and the Beast, a musical from Disney, did not get a nomination. Like, are you kidding me? And I'm going to give it male song. I'll allow the Beast song to be the one, because it is an original song versus what Beauty and the Beast had in the past. They brought up most of their music back, but this is an original song for Beauty and the Beast, Evermore. I don't understand why it didn't get anything. And I hear the songs. I know a lot of the times Disney does get nominated for a bunch. I know Coco got nominated. I enjoy that song. I do. I just was very disappointed that Beauty and the Beast didn't get one, when I kind of thought Beauty and the Beast was the highest grossing film of 2017. I thought Wonder Woman was second. But I could be wrong. I know that they're 1 and 2 of some sort, and they also have female leads. and it's the first time ever that female lead roles achieved this accomplishment. And to have Beauty and the Beast have literally just the typical costume design nomination and set design or production design, and then Wonder Woman be completely snubbed, that I have an issue with. I have an issue that these two movies that were huge to the populace, like, people loved them, people were inspired by them, people followed them for the Oscars to go around. Just, I get that's what they do. I get that we're higher, they think they're higher than everybody, and like, oh, like, we're not going to pick the most popular movie because we want you to see these other movies who impact in different ways. But I just think it was just really almost insulting to not have Wonder Woman have any of these. The costume, you could nominate for a costume designer. Are you freaking kidding me? That's kind of what Suicide Squad was nominated for, like costume design and hair and makeup. Like, they did a great job at designing all those Amazonian costumes. Like, they had tons of Amazon warriors that they had to create, and they didn't get anything. And for Beauty and the Beast, I mean, they were beautiful costumes too. I'm glad that they got at least that. But to be like #1 movie and to have the impact that that movie had and not give Emma Watson anything, like it's so frustrating. And I've seen a lot of the Oscar movies that are Best Picture. I haven't seen every single one yet, but I've seen a lot, and I really like them. I love the movies. I don't know if I would have watched them if they were not nominated. So I do respect the fact that the Academy nominates these movies that aren't always well known in our society, but it's just a little depressing when it's like, okay, these two movies were so impactful to the women and lead women roles and stuff like that, and showing that we can sell box office tickets, and they just snubbed one that was just huge, and they gave the typical, they can have costume design. Like, come on.
Yeah, when you really put it like that, it really does. It really does stink, because I think even we could go into, 2016, and there were some other movies that we thought, hey, they should have given like some kind of nomination for that. If I'm not mistaken, I think that was the year that Deadpool came out, and then I remember the 2017 Oscars, people are just like, oh, we're going to boycott the Oscars because, Deadpool didn't get a nomination, and Deadpool didn't get anything, and blah, 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 and they didn't do anything with Deadpool, and then everybody was just like, oh, well, there was other things that they had to worry about anyway, like screwing up Best Picture. And it is kind of interesting that they're not doing the same thing with, Wonder Woman, at least. I do agree with you that I think that Beauty and the Beast definitely could have used a little bit more credit than what it got from the Academy. But I'm sure there's a lot of other award ceremonies that have definitely said that, hey, they've done a great job. Hey, Emma Watson, she was a great actress in this. Or Dan Stevens, he was great as, the Beast in here. Oh, man, he can actually sing? Oh, let's give him a nomination. Let's do this. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think the Oscars are just so... I'm trying to think of the right phrase for it. Maybe not as highly anticipated as what they used to be. I mean, they're still very prestigious. You look at some of the other winners in the past. Yeah, great. But at the same time, it's like, why didn't you, include this movie? Why didn't you include, a great movie like this? Why didn't, this movie win? Why didn't, this song get any respect? And for me last year, it was, why the hell did Suicide Squad get an Oscar win? Just because of the costumes? Yes, I'm sure that, Crocman or whatever his name is, but let's just face it, that whole entire Oscar win was an entire crock. Let's just face it. Because that's the only good quality they could say about that entire movie is that, oh, hey, we got an Oscar. Was it for Best Picture? No. Best Actress? No. Best Actor? No. What was it for? Best Costume Design. Oh, so it's because of your designs that make this apparently a good movie. Yeah. So your story sucks. Maybe. I'm getting on my rant again. But anyway, getting back to the point that it does suck when you have all these highly critically acclaimed movies from last year that did not get any kind of recognition. There were some that were just, they were the most talked about. They were the most must-see, or they had, quite a bit of impact in the box office. Yeah, but there were still other movies. Well, they're in a class of their own, I'm sure. It's like, do you realize how insulting that does sound if you were to say it like that? I mean, I know that, I joke about Mark Hamill being a class all of his own because of, his performance in Star Wars, but this is a completely different deal. With Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, he was a bona fide legend when he started that role. And that was fine. And he's always going to be recognized for that. For a movie that comes probably once in a lifetime, like Wonder Woman, and a once in a lifetime performance that Gal Gadot provides, as well as, Emma Watson providing that wonderful performance as Belle and Dan Stevens as Beast, et cetera, and so forth. I can go through so many examples. So many of these like once in a lifetime movies that are probably never going to be recreated as well again. It's like, why don't you give them a little more credit than just costume design, or the other one I think that's kind of humorous is the scenery or the set design. Oh, it was great. It's like, so basically movies that have already had this set design, they've never reached that point. Yeah, but this is Disney. Oh, got it. I don't understand it either. I just don't get why they can't just, look at some of these movies a little more proficiently and a little more in a positive light where they realize, oh, hey, this is talked about a lot more. Oh, this has been real well received. Oh, hey, this has done this. Let's actually incorporate these. Now, why the Academy picks those movies, like you said, maybe it's just so that people can view them more. And some of them, like we said, they're good. They're good movies. I could almost say that their response to Beauty and the Beast was probably The Shape of Water, in all honesty, because it kind of did have sort of that feel to it, but it still wasn't the same because obviously, there's only one Beauty and the Beast, and they were the originator of, finding beauty within. So, yeah, I don't understand it. It's really just, mind-boggling how they did that. But I'm sure we'll have more to talk about when we get to the Oscars, which is only a few weeks away, guys. It's going to be something. I'm going to say that right now. All right, so final thoughts before we get into all the good stuff?
No, I mean, obviously this was a show of just like what we wanted to see, but I am really excited for the Oscars. And I think I'm really excited to see who wins because, like I said, I really, really enjoy these movies. And yeah, and we're never putting any other movie down. We're just saying, like, it's a little... That was my only soapbox. Was like, hey, these two female lead movies kind of got a little bit snubbed, and they made so much money, and what's going on in the world today, it's like, just didn't seem right.
Right.
But that was my only spiel about it. But and I don't want to, again, I don't want to put down any type of people who work creatively. I don't think that's what we meant to do here. Is like set design and costume design is freaking amazing. I love it. I'm a costume designer. That's what I do. So like when I see somebody get an Oscar for how amazing their costumes are, it's incredible. It just we wanted to see, the bigger, what people always look for. But I don't think in any way that we're putting down somebody's role in a movie, because without that role, the movie wouldn't happen.
Hey, fair point. I'm not going to disagree with that. All right, so we get into the cheap plug part of the program. Let's start off with you, VicTori Belle. Do you have any big events that are coming up this weekend or next weekend?
Not really. I believe that my next event is the Barrington Library Convention, which is going to be, I believe, March 4th. I could be wrong on that. I haven't announced anything about it yet, but yeah, so beginning of March, I'm back at conventions again, so what happens with that. But yeah, I'm excited.
All right, awesome. Well, of course, here at the Game Changer, it's going to be a bit of a busy couple weeks these upcoming days. Tomorrow, be sure to tune in for another edition of the Game Changer where we talk about wrestling throughout the week with myself and Mr. Max Beatty, of course. Saturday morning, I will be making that huge announcement that I have been hyping up for so long. Like I've said, it's definitely one of those things you do not want to miss. It's one of those things that definitely will indeed shake the very foundation of the Game Changer, so don't miss out on that. Of course, Sunday is Elimination Chamber, where I will defend my title against Mr. Joe. And also on Saturday, like I said, big announcement will also include a lot of things going into WrestleMania. Next week is going to be Oscar week, where I'll be doing a couple of podcasts talking about some of the movies from the past, as well as some of the movies from the present, talking a little bit about that. And also next week, we have our special Oscar prediction show, which myself and Victory Belle, we just take wild stabs at who we think is going to win. And for your enjoyment and pleasure, we're going to broadcast that and do a live reaction show while watching the Oscars. So be sure to tune in to that on March 4th. Is it March 4th, or am I just off right now? Yep, it's March 4th at 9. So we'll definitely post the links and stuff like that there. So be sure to follow Miss Victory Belle in the comments below. Of course, Facebook.com/VictoriBelleCosplay, which is also her Instagram. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Real Effing Game, as well as give us a like on our Facebook fan page, Facebook.com/Changing Up the Game. Oh boy, this is going to be an intense couple weeks, and by all means, guys, I hope that you're enjoying these episodes, and you're definitely going to be wanting to not miss out on a lot of the can't miss episodes coming up in the next few weeks. Right. But before I forget, one thing I wanted to address with a couple of the fans that actually do listen to the show. It's fun when we do these kind of topics and we talk about some of the random stuff, whether it be comic books and movies and stuff like that. But we also want to know what you guys would like to have us talk about. So by all means, leave some comments in the section below. Let us know what you guys want to talk about. It could be anything from costuming to, maybe we can even talk about like sports, or we could talk about some kind of big event that's going on. Like any special movies that you guys want us to talk about, like this is what we've heard, this is what we would hope to expect to see, and then we'll maybe do a review on it later on. Just let us know what you guys want to talk about. Just let us know what you want us to discuss, and we'll do our research, and we may botch it up, or we might do a good job of it. And by we botch it up, I mean Victory Belle will do an amazing job, and I'm just going to be there being like, So with that being said, for Victory Belle, I've been Nate the Effing Great. This has been the Game Changer. Let's enjoy these next few weeks because it's going to be crazy, and we will talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye!